You are listening to Arts on the Air, a bi-weekly-ish interview show dedicated to Savannah, Georgia's artists, musicians, and authors. Each episode will feature a guest in conversation about their philosophy, practice, and current projects, as well as their thoughts on the state of the arts in our community of Savannah. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanow, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio. Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm with musician Markus Kuhlmann today. Welcome, Markus.
Howdy.
So good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Yay. So Markus is a local musician, and when you are performing solo, you've got your stage name, Mike Kilo.
Yes, cool. Mike Kilo.
Mike Kilo, okay.
And it was kind of like my parents were military, my brothers were military, so it's just kind of taking my initials and doing like the Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Yeah.
Like, you know how each letter has a word that goes with it. And so I just did that to make it maybe a band thing instead of just a solo thing.
It's
so
cool.
If I get more members in, it's not just my name that's out there.
Yeah,
it'll be a collective
we can distinguish
exactly
what you are, yeah. Do you have is there a different musical persona between the two?
Not really. I mean, for the Mike Kilo stuff, it's mostly just the solo stuff that I write for the most part. And so when I'm performing solo, it's usually just under my regular name because there's a lot of times with the solo stuff, it just becomes a lot of covers, which I'm okay with playing covers too.
Yeah.
But for my own recorded, like kind of full band stuff, I kind of like to have a band name for it.
A little distinguishing.
Yep.
I like your little tagline on your Instagram is Pandemic-born Dad-Bod Rock.
Yes.
Which I love.
Yes.
It's colorful. We know what we're getting.
Yeah.
I became familiar with you through our friends. We have friends in common, Mike and Katie Nichols, and they know you from just like hanging out at Henny Penny, which I love. So it feels very Savannah, very neighborhoody.
Mike came in with a Nada Surf t-shirt on. And I was like, they're more than a one-hit wonder. You know, I know the popular song that everybody knows, but they're actually a great band. And he's like, oh, they are. And then that started a beautiful friendship.
I bet. He's got a good record collection.
He does. He's a wonderful guy, too. So I love both of them. So
I love this.
This is great.
And I interviewed Jason Bible last year, and you guys were in the Trainwrecks together years ago. So I'm excited to talk about the latest things going on with that.
Yes.
But yeah, just to start, I looked on your online stuff, and it looked like you went to Clemson. Are you from South Carolina? Or?
Yes, I grew up in Sumter, South Carolina, which is middle of the state near Columbia. Both my brothers went to Clemson. I thought I wanted to be an architect, so I went through architecture school, got my master's, and I am now a recovering architect.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of schooling.
It is a lot of schooling, and I thought it's what I wanted to do, but the school for architecture and real world and architecture are two completely different things.
Oh, interesting.
And and it wasn't something that I was really good at. And, you know, at the time I was playing in bands down in Charleston, and I really loved that. And so I would just wait to get out of work so I could go practice with the band hang out, you know.
Yeah, it's really telling then when you feel like that.
Yes. So, you know, I stuck it out in firms for like 10 to 12 years, but I could just tell that it wasn't what I wanted to do. So now I make coffee and music, and I'm so much happier.
Yeah, and you just enjoy the houses around Savannah, basically.
Yes, and I don't have to do any drawings or do any site visits or detail toilets, like none of that stuff. I can just appreciate it for it being beautiful and not be on the hook for all the...
Did you grow up, so you were playing in bands in college, you grew up learning instruments already?
My mom was a piano teacher and church organist, and she's got perfect pitch, you know, which is so annoying. But yeah, so she's a really good musician and played clarinet, but she was a music major. And so I started piano, I think, in kindergarten.
Oh.
Yeah.
With tiny little hands.
Yes. And I took to it at first, but I just wanted to play like Billy Joel and Journey and Elton John. And all the piano teachers wanted you to do Schubert and Liszt and, you know, and Mozart, which is great, you know, but I just wanted to, whatever I heard on the radio was what I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And so I actually quit piano lessons probably in the 10th grade in high school because I didn't think it was cool.
Well, it's a long time to keep it up.
It is. And now I realize that playing piano is super cool, you know, but it was I just wasn't being able to play the songs that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
So I gave that up. But at that point I was already playing drums. Got my first drum set. It's actually in that back room. I've had those drums for 42 years.
Wow.
And
Do drums hold up over time, or do they
They
just get
do.
beat up?
And yeah, the especially the old, like, so those were made in 1963, I think. Really thick shells, and it's less engineered wood, and so it was more like people actually just bending wood to make the hoops and the shells for stuff back in the day, and they hold up. Yeah, I've had some of the metal parts retrofitted, if they got rusted out or whatever, but the shells themselves, beautiful.
That's so interesting.
No, it's great.
They sound like they were a work of art.
And they increase in value as long as you kind of keep them in good shape.
Wow.
And so they're worth a ton.
So you were picking up drums in your spare time. How did your church mom like that?
She was okay with it. I think the neighbors probably hated it.
Yeah.
Because I had the drums out on the porch, and I practiced a lot. So, and not really in bands, but mostly just like a jam box with headphones, and I play along to whatever bad metal I was listening to when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah, what bands were you into when you?
Oh man, when I was that age, it was like at the weird period of Kiss, but like Rat and just bad metal stuff. But basically whatever was on MTV, I loved. So if it was America's Top 40 or Solid Gold or stuff like that I would see on when MTV came out. I was and they would play videos all day. I would just sit in front of the TV and watch videos all day.
Yeah, it's an interesting era. It sounded like when you were a kid and you were playing piano, then it was Billy Joel, and then by the time you're in high school, then it's like the end of metal, it sounds like. Yeah. So
right at the end of high school was kind of when like the college rock was kind of coming along. So like 10,000 Maniacs, Indigo Girls, REM, stuff like that. And that is the kind of music that I've always liked. So that alternative indie stuff is kind of my main wheelhouse.
Yeah, I could tell that from listening to the solo things that you sent me. And I think I'm just a little younger than you, so my high school was smack dab during the 90s, so I had really good time to be in high school. It was grunge and all the alternative.
Yes. So I was a huge Soundgarden fan, and Alice in Chains, and when Nirvana came out, I was I think a sophomore in college, and everybody, all of the, I was in an architecture studio, and you would hear that Nevermind record in every single
just in every place,
and everybody was playing it. It was such an exciting time to love music, and you felt like it was a sea change from all the hair metal, like the Bon Jovi and the Cinderella and the whatever,
the AC/DC and stuff.
Yeah, and it felt like it was, whether it was or not, it just felt more authentic, and it was something that just really spoke to me at that time, and I just really immersed myself in it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they say that Smells Like Teen Spirit video is what killed metal.
Yes.
It's the final.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think there was some TV show where the guy from Warrant walked into his record label, and it wasn't a picture of him anymore. It was a picture of Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
It was just I think things are changing.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, but that era also there were all those softer bands too, like Counting Crows and Gin Blossoms, and like you said, Indigo Girls. There was all this other alternative too, and that same wave of bands, but it really ran the gamut of how hard it was.
Yeah. But I mean, I still love Counting Crows and Gin Blossoms. I play some of their songs in my sets every now and then, and so I'm here for all that.
Yeah, a whole generation that's really nostalgic about all that.
Yes.
So what brought you to Savannah then?
So I was playing after grad school, so that would be 1999. So I graduated from Clemson, and I moved to Charleston, and before I got there, somebody was like, I know these folks, and they kind of manage bands, and I know they're looking for a drummer. And so as soon as I got to Charleston, I made some phone calls, and I wound up with Eric Britt. Do you know him here in town?
Yeah.
So Eric Britt, at the time, we had the worst band name ever. I had nothing to do with it, but we were called Jumbo Wood. I have no idea why. I think it was somebody went by a big golf store, and they said, come by and check out our selection of Jumbo Woods.
Oh.
So
because that's the name of a particular golf club, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, but but the double entendre was there, and it's awful.
Right.
But
so you're divorcing yourself from
from that name. Okay. But Eric Britt and I played in bands together for 10 years. He changed the band, kind of evolved, and he changed it back to Hazel Virtue, which was what he called his band when he was at UGA. And we played with the symphony orchestra. We kept winning best local band and stuff like that. And we would do a little bit of touring in the Southeast. And at that point, I was just mostly drums and a little bit of background vocals. But yeah, that was kind of my first time really playing in a band that got gigs, got good paying gigs, would go out and string 4 or 5 dates together.
So this is like way before social media. How were people promoting and advertising and getting gigs?
That was hard. I mean, it was right at the beginning of the internet, but it was, a lot of times just local magazines. So there was a city paper in Charleston. There may have been a city paper here in Savannah at some point. Creative Loafing, you know, and it was and there were then music zines that would be kind of regional, and you could kind of get your name in there, but it was just a lot of hustling, getting on the phone.
Yeah.
Were
you like sending your tape or your CDs to different clubs?
Yes. And we would do a lot of that too.
Yeah.
And then if you got a big enough name, and because Eric before had kind of, when he was in college, he had kind of made the route through the Southeast. And so he kind of knew people who to call, and so he just had more of an in to get gigs. But it's always a hustle. It's always a hustle.
Did you hit the road and go on some tours in that era?
Ish. Nothing huge. But we'd go out for like 3 or 4 days. He would have some friends of his that maybe join us, and we would do, either we'd open for them or they'd open for us. But it wasn't. But nothing like big. Like we wouldn't go all the way around the country, with one group and then just kind of string it all together. It was more like a weekend warrior stuff. I was working in an architecture firm. He had a young child at the time, so we were kind of keeping ourselves together 9 to 5 during the week and then going out.
Yeah, there just weren't enough clubs in Charleston to do that.
Yeah, there was some, and we would go to Columbia, we would go to Myrtle Beach, we would come down to Savannah because Eric grew up in Savannah, so that's how he wound up back here.
Oh, cool.
And that's kind of how when he migrated back to Savannah, I kind of migrated there too. Met Jason Bible shortly after that, and so then that's when kind of the train wreck started up too.
What is it like to try to sing at the same time that you're drumming?
It's hard. When I was younger and a little bit better shape, I could kind of do it, and it would be easy, but especially like one of my bands that we'll probably talk about at a later date, but it was Clouds and Satellites, and I was singing lead on a lot of those songs, and it's hard. It's really hard.
Like to keep your head still, I guess, and still drum.
It's mostly just the breath, to be able to hold a really true tone and keep the note right while you're doing all this physical activity. Yeah. And I was a pretty hard player when I was younger, so I would hit hard and I would have like blisters, and it was a pretty gross kind of situation with my hands, but because I played so hard and loud, so then I was just out of breath, so it's hard to sing lead and play drums.
Yeah, I guess I never even thought about, I always am just thinking about positioning, like keeping your head still at the microphone, but it's so like aerobic as well.
It is, and it's hard.
So it's a young person's thing to be doing that.
It is, and I do it some now, but I feel it. It's just like, let's do a slow song next, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, give me just a little bit, like 4 minutes of a breather, and then we'll go back to the fast stuff.
Maybe that's why Dave Grohl like shifted from drums to guitar and vocal.
I see him play drums still, or Taylor Hawkins when he was about my age before he passed away. And how hard he played, and they would go for 2.5 3 hours. It's insane. That is just conditioning at a very high level.
My always original person I think of playing drums and singing, and this is so uncool, is just Phil Collins.
And people think Phil is uncool. My wife hates Phil Collins. I've got some Genesis records that are amazing. There's that middle period, like in the early Genesis, like the prog stuff is great. And then when they kind of got a little more pop, but they weren't complete pop, it was awesome. And he's good. You see some of the old videos of him from like maybe early 80s, and it's amazing what he could do.
He was a good drummer.
Yeah, really good drummer. Cool. You don't realize just how good he is until you go back and look, because he's very frail now, and he doesn't play drums anymore. And he just kind of sits when he plays and just sings. Yeah. He's actually said that a lot of that was just because of how hard he played drums when he was younger, and that it kind of tore up his body, So it's a thing that can happen for sure.
It's interesting. I've never heard any technical analysis of him from another drummer, so that's interesting.
No,
to hear.
he's
I love
you know,
that.
he's not. And today with all the YouTube stuff, there's just so much emphasis on just really fast technical skill, but
Yeah.
just being a really good field drummer is probably the most important thing to me. So, you know, Phil, like that Howard Jones song, No One Is to Blame. Do you remember
It's a
that
good song.
And that drum track is so beautiful, and that's Phil Collins.
Oh.
And it is just, you know, there's a original version that Howard Jones put out with just a drum machine. Then he went back in and re-recorded it with Phil, and it sounds great.
Oh,
and
so-
they're just solid but tasteful, and there's that little bit of swing that only certain drummers have, and Phil had it.
He put in a little extra.
Yeah. So
Do you
I love Phil. All
right.
I understand why people can hate him.
Probably like the dumb ballads are the ones I really like. I really like Against All Odds.
Against All Odds. Yeah, I saw Postal Service with Death Cab last year, and they cranked that.
And they
one
did.
out.
Okay, so I guess I'm not the only one
Yes.
nostalgic for that song.
Yep.
I'm thinking of another question as you're talking. When you were talking about the difference in the construction of drums, there's like been like trends in the way people drum,
Yes.
and I guess from the way drums are constructed, different things you're going to do with them. Is
Yeah.
that a thing over time?
Yeah, it just seems like there's a lot more emphasis. I remember being so anti-drum machine or electronic drums, like I just thought that was blasphemy. And now it's just another instrument, it's just another tool to get the sounds in your head onto out, you know,
Yeah.
essentially. But it does seem like there's more of an emphasis on like the metal guys with like the double kick drums that are like brrrr, and I can't do that. I don't own a double kick drum pedal, and I would love to be able to play like that, but I think there's so much emphasis on the technical side of it, and with the YouTubers, that's all you see. You see a short of this guy just going completely insane at like 5 bazillion beats per minute, and it's not really something that's sustainable, and it's not really musical.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people and guitarists are that way, where they're just doing crazy technical runs, but sometimes like a slow Clapton solo is what you'd rather hear.
So it's like just showing your technical skill.
It seems like a lot of people coming up when they're learning music, it's based on just, I would rather be a YouTuber.
Right.
That, you know.
It's not necessarily playing an entire song.
Right.
Okay.
And so it feels like there's not as much emphasis on being in a band and just writing songs and putting out an album. It's like, can we get one chunk of a song that'll get on TikTok and it'll be viral and that kind of stuff too.
In the same way that everything has been boiled down to like shorter attention span.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is a bummer, because I love, I've actually kind of grown into, as I get older, like jazz and post rock and ambient, and I do like some metal, but that's kind of longer and prettier, but like takes a while to unfold, you know?
Oh yeah, one clip, I'll stick this in right now. One of the clips that you sent me to look at was just like waves of sound.
Yeah.
It felt like a movie background music.
Oh, cool.
It's
Yep.
I'll put that in.
Yes.
So you, at some point, when you play solo, you're playing guitar and
Yes.
singing. So at some point, did you just teach yourself guitar? How'd that go?
I did. I guess so. I started playing piano like kindergarten. Got my drums when I was in 6th grade, so I was 12 years old. And then that's kind of all I did for a while. But then I always wanted, just always music. I was always singing. If I wasn't actually playing drums, I was air drumming or air guitaring. It was ridiculous. But so for Christmas, my sophomore year at Clemson, got my first guitar, and then just, for the most part, just kind of taught myself.
Yeah, because in that era, and I've talked to other people who were talking about teaching themselves instruments too, you'd like go to the instrument store and get this magazine, and it would just sort of teach you how. It would just break down the songs.
It would have
for you.
tablature in the magazine, and
You'd do it on your
it
own.
was like, okay, it'll show you how to do this song, and it would show like the 5 songs on the top right of the magazine, Guitar World or whatever, and then it would have like the chords and the lyrics and little tablature stuff to show you. You put your finger on this fret on this string, at this time. And so that was, yeah.
That's how you did it.
And there was a really good bluegrass picker that lived right across the hall from me at Clemson. And so I came back, and we hadn't really talked before, and I was like, hey, man, we were both there early, like a day or two earlier than all the other students. I was like, hey, man, I got a guitar. And he's like, oh, really? Let me see it. And then he started tearing it up, and then we became best friends, and so he showed me a lot of his stuff, too.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, this is a G chord, this is a D chord, and then you just kind of practice those, and then the more you do it, the better you get.
I guess different hand and wrist injuries once you're playing guitar than on drums.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, my elbows, like, tendonitis is just crazy.
It's just everything at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, barista, guitar, drums, all of it.
So we should say in your day job where you met my friends Mike and Katie, so your wife is Jen of
Yes.
the Coffee Empire.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jen from Foxy.
So you're working at Henny Penny sometimes.
Yes, so I'm Monday through Thursday, which is kind of the musician schedule, it seems like. I don't know if you know Jalen Reyes.
No.
He'll be playing Dog Days. He plays with Andrew Savannah.
Oh, okay.
And he plays in a bunch of the bands, like Reverend Bro Diddley and a bunch of other bands. And he works at Coffee Fox, and he's got the same schedule. So we work Monday through Thursday mornings, and then we keep our weekends open for gigs and stuff.
That makes sense.
So
is it hard for you to get up early for a coffee job?
it is. So I'm up between 5 and 5:30.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a night owl in general, though?
I used to be, and now if it's past 10 o'clock, I'm like, honey, what the hell happened?
You want to wrap it up?
Where did we lose control of our day? Why are we still awake?
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to tell people, and pre-COVID to post-COVID, people used to stay out all night, super late. So I told people back in the day, especially before COVID, but when I was playing all the time, that I was like, I work 9 to 5, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I am like closing down the Jinx at 4 a.m. on my way home. And now, like, all of my solo gigs are skewing earlier in the day.
Right.
So most of them are done by 8.
Happy hour-ish.
Yeah, and people don't want to stay out past midnight.
God, imagine if you were getting done playing at 4 or 5 a.m. and then you were just rolling right over to your coffee shop
Yeah, go
job.
straight to work.
Wild.
Yeah, no. And I used to not need as much sleep, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe I just had more opportunities. If I didn't have a kid and I wasn't, when I was doing the band full time, then I didn't have to get up for another job.
Yeah. That does seem hard for like musicians as opposed to artists, because even if you're doing an opening or something and it's in the evening, but things aren't like late at night. So
Yes.
the aging aspect of being a musician does seem really different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself to be an introvert or an extrovert?
I was more extroverted, I think, when I was younger. Because, I don't know, I didn't know anything, but I thought I did. I thought I knew everything, and that I was in control of everything, and, like, I had it going on. And the older I get, the more I know that I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm not so sure that I'm, like, the greatest musician you've ever heard, like I did when I was in my early 20s and had no clue. And so I do feel more introverted. I don't go like and hang out after the show because I got a kid and I got to get up early and there's just stuff to do around the house. So it's not as much of a go out party and hang out with the crowd kind of a thing. It's more I really enjoy playing, and it's a good way to make money, especially here in Savannah. You can do pretty well for yourself if you're kind of in the stable of people that go out and play. And so I do enjoy playing, and I like keeping my voice in shape, but yeah, the social aspect of it isn't as important.
Yeah, that does seem like a benefit of once you're older and you have like a more established career, that you don't have to stay up so late and keep networking and working it. Because I talked to Jackson Evans, and he was talking about, he called it like the art of the hang, where you have to be really good at not just doing your music, but then the whole late night networking thing too. But I guess once you get to a certain point, you aren't required to do all that.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably help if I did. I think there's a certain amount of narcissism or ability to self-promote that is necessary for people to really get to a certain level.
Yeah.
And
if you were going to live off it and do it full time,
yeah,
there's a lot involved.
And I just have problems with that, the shameless self-promotion stuff. I find that really difficult. I can't stomach it, I can do social media stuff for a company that I believe in or that I'm affiliated with, or a full band maybe, but just to be like, you guys, I'm amazing and you need to come see me because I'm just, and I just can't. It's hard for me to put that stuff out.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's hard to get,
And I know there's people out there that are good at it. We used to play with a guy out of Raleigh, and his band is American Aquarium. Heard of them? So it's kind of an alt-country band, so it's kind of in the same genre as the Trainwrecks, and they would open for us every now and then when they come through, and now he's playing Red Rocks, and he's going on big tours and getting lots of press, and he can do that. He can say, hey, Omaha, last night was amazing, and he'll have a bunch of pictures, and now Tulsa, let's get ready to hang, get your tickets.
And this huge community of followers.
Yeah, and he can do that, and he's okay with it, but he's always been just a massive go-getter, so he's just always on the phone, just hammering away, like just monomaniacally focused on his own career.
Yeah.
And that's hard when you've got family and
it really
kids.
does take this single-minded devotion.
Yeah.
What year did you actually get to Savannah then?
I kind of was living in Charleston, but the bottom had gone out of like a home building, so the architecture job that I had, it just went away. Because and so at that point, like I had a house in Charleston, I sold that, so I was kind of free and able to move around. And so Eric Britt had introduced me to Jason Bible, and Jason and Eric Dunn, who are the guitar player and the bass player from the original Trainwrecks, they were just kind of doing the duo thing, and so I wasn't really tied to one place, and they're like, well man, let's just have you sit in on drums. So our first practice was a paid gig at some place over, it was on Eisenhower, I think it's where Once Upon a Child kind of is now. It was a place called Capone's, and it was a pool hall. And we set up in the corner, and I'd never played with those guys before, and we just did a full 3 hours of just kind of, any Dylan tunes? Sure. And let's do this. And it was kind of Trainwreck beat.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and then so we kind of became a band by playing gigs.
Yeah.
And we were all young, and
Jason talked about that you'd be like on Wilmington Island or Tybee Island and then going to River Street, like in the same night, just to do these
2 to 3 gigs a day
Yeah.
on the weekends. It was insane. So we'd start at noon out on Tybee by some pool, then we'd have a happy hour somewhere, and then we'd do late night somewhere else, and it was insane.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It's amazing to be able to string that many gigs together.
Yeah.
Like a real feat.
At the time, it was unbelievable. And I don't know how we did it. It was just a pretty amazing convergence of energy and
were you kind
motivation.
Of like 30, like or 30s or 20s?
Yeah, I was right at 30. Yeah.
So you can still do it for a while.
Yep.
And were you playing a mix of originals and covers?
The Trainwrecks have always been more Bible's baby, I guess. So a lot of covers just to kind of get our legs underneath us. And then Jason was writing songs. And so it was mostly covers and then a lot of Jason's originals.
Bible's baby would be a cool name for a band.
Yeah. His baby now plays a lot.
Yeah.
Jack.
I love
insane.
his son playing Nirvana covers and stuff.
Crazy. He's on a good track because he's not listening to kind of the music that I don't like as much about the new generation. He's got an old soul, but he is a really talented young man, and he's already getting that good experience of playing in front of people, because it can be really terrifying, but he's done it from such a young age that he's past that.
Yeah, and I love the two of them together. I'm sure that must be comforting.
Yeah.
You're like on stage with your dad.
Yeah.
Do you, if you're in a band and you're performing that much, do you guys have to still practice too, or is that not even part of it?
Not as much. When you're playing 3 to 6 gigs a week, you kind of if Jason has a new song, it's it kind of goes like this, maybe before, during sound check, or just on an acoustic after we get set up. It's it kind of goes here, and then there'll be a change here, and then you just kind of figure it out.
Really?
Yeah. And so for that gig, Jason and Eric and I haven't played together in years, over a decade. and then we recently played at Britannia, just out of the blue. And
Yeah.
we maybe rehearsed for like 30, 45 minutes.
Oh, really? And they just did it?
We just fell back
I
in.
love that.
And it was just like, I remember all these songs. And
Yeah, this is very cool. So in May, you just did a big show at Britannia on Wilmington Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you even get back together?
I don't know, but somebody offered Jason from Britannia, maybe offered Jason that gig. And that was another one of the places, like when we first started, I think we played every Wednesday at Britannia. And even though the ownership is different, it was just kind of a thing. And so since my buddy Stu, who was in the Trainwrecks and also in a bunch of bands with me, every band that I have, I bring Stu in. But when Stu moved over the pandemic, the Trainwrecks kind of died out. Whatever version it was at that point, they just didn't play out as much anymore. So whenever the Trainwrecks play, it's kind of like a reunion thing, and it only happens a few times a year. But yeah, I just got a text from Jason. He's like, "Hey man, you want to do the original Trainwrecks at Britannia?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And then it kind of gathered steam online, and a lot of people showed up, and it was great.
It's
and we sounded great.
I hope you'll do this like every season or something.
No, we are thinking. I know that a friend of mine does Dairy Days. So the festival out at the old dairy.
Matt Toole.
Well, it's and Michael Edwards.
Okay.
The lawyer.
Oh yeah, I know him.
So I think they're probably putting it on together. But he asked us to play that, so I think we're on the books for that one. I know the guy from Victory North was at the show, and I think he wants us to open for somebody coming up.
Oh, that's
so
very cool.
I need to get in touch with them on that. But yeah, so it won't be like getting back into the band and trying to do it full time, but yeah, we are hopeful to do.
It makes it special.
And a few times a year, like once quarterly or whatever. Yeah. And I'm totally in for that. So yeah.
Did you? Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about, like, during the pandemic, it looks like you kind of started doing a lot of solo work, and you started putting things on Bandcamp.
Yes.
It's an EP when it's like a mini album?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you? And a lot of those songs on it, I think most of it you wrote and like performed all the instruments for it, right?
Yes.
It's getting out of control, so get a bucket, refilling of a bottle of soul. When people leaving, you know they ain't got no soul.
How long had you been working on those songs?
Some for a long time. Some were fairly new. I'm terrible at getting lyrics down, so I've got probably 30 to 40 fully realized songs that I just need to sit down and like make myself write lyrics and melodies to it. I don't know why that's my hang up, but especially during the pandemic when everybody had free time, I went to YouTube University, and I figured out, like, I had enough knowledge of what I use Logic, which is a recording software for Apple. And so I knew enough to be dangerous, but I didn't really know the technical side and how to put songs together in Logic. And over the pandemic, I just really bared down, and I was just like, okay, I want to do this. So I would ask YouTube that question, and I would figure out how to do that. And then that was a tool in my box. And then I just kept doing that.
Yeah.
And so I got to the point where I was getting really good at the technical side of recording music. And so then just kept all these songs. I kind of figured out how to do it all myself. And so if I got inspired, I could just come in, sit down, do a guitar track real quick. If it was something that repeated, I figured out how to chop it and then copy that one part and move it over here. And so I started to be able to work smart and not hard. And so it got really easy to kind of construct songs. And it's the best thing I've ever done, because I've kind of leaned into a lot of production stuff, and that I love.
And the program is called Logic, you said?
Logic, yeah.
So I wanted to ask about the songwriting. Usually you do the music first and then the lyrics?
Yes. Almost exclusively. It's always music first, and then I go back and agonize over the lyrics,
Yeah.
and they don't come, and then they come, and then I hate them, and then I edit, and then I cross out, and then I try again. But yeah, and so every now and then it'll just kind of, everything will come, or a lyric idea will come, and it'll all just kind of vomit out, and but that doesn't happen often with me.
What inspires the music? Do you have to listen to something else and get in the zone, or what do you?
Kinda. Sometimes you'll hear a song that kind of sounds like a direction that you kind of want to go in, and then that'll create a spark. But usually it's just, a lot of times it's just kind of sitting with a guitar and just kind of playing around, and then if something, wait a second, that's kind of cool, and then you kind of work with that, and then you add another part to it, and then you kind of string it together, and it's like, okay, that could be a verse, that could be a chorus, sure. And so it all just kind of, sometimes it just comes to you. And a lot of songs aren't like rocket surgery, it's just a couple of chords and maybe one change, and that's it.
I feel like it'd be really hard when I think about the little like pigeon amount that I play on a guitar. If I think about trying to sit down and like starting something new, that all I would do would be playing a song I already knew, or like you play a chord and then you immediately just launch into a song you knew, and not just playing something.
And it's interesting that, so I don't know if you saw that one. There's one viral video where this one band, it was kind of a comedy band, but they're like, with these 4 chords, here's 52 songs that use this exact same.
Yeah.
So I took that chord progression and I wrote a song, and I called it A Typical Progression, because I was just like, everybody's doing it, so I'm gonna make a song, and I can give you. It's another one that doesn't have lyrics, but it's pretty much finished.
Okay.
And it's but yeah, and it's and it just does those 4 chords.
Are the chords, is it A, C, and G?
It is G, D, E minor, C.
Okay.
So it's the 1, 4, 6, 5, I think.
Those are like the big 4 chords.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like there's an Adele song, there's a Coldplay song, there's a Lil Wayne song, there's it's just like all these songs can be use these typical progressions.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I learned maybe 6 chords or something, and you could go to the store and buy those booklets of like contemporary songs, and you could play lots and lots of songs from that.
So so a lot of these songs, especially the stuff that you hear on the radio, that kind of satisfying progressions and the melody kind of resolves nicely. It's all the same chords.
Yeah.
So it's kind of how you arrange it, what instruments you use, the melody that you put on top of it. But nobody's reinventing the wheel music-wise. If you've got 12 notes, everybody's got those 12 notes, and that's it.
What do you do when you have writer's block?
I don't know. I do go through spots like if life's being overwhelming or something crazy government-wise or whatever, where you're just like, So sometimes the motivation isn't there. You try to make yourself sit down and do stuff. With the lyrics, I always have trouble with the lyrics. And so I feel like I'm just perpetually in writer's block as far as the lyrical content.
Well, it's pretty easy for you to generate songs musically, and you have all these sitting around, then would you ever just like get somebody else to write
I have done that
lyrics for the
from
songs?
time. Yeah. And like, especially like we had the band Clouds and Satellites. That was Stu from the Trainwrecks. He played in that band with me, and we had 4 songwriters and 3 singers.
Say what you wanna say, but just don't ask. Do what you want to, but it just won't last.
And so sometimes Stu would bring in music, and Tim would finish off and do lyrics and melody. I would come in with some music, and there's some songs where he would write the verses, I'd write a chorus or whatever, you know. So I'm definitely up for collaborating on stuff like that. Yeah.
And it looks like the songs that you have on, I'm sorry, is it SoundCloud or Bandcamp?
Bandcamp.
Oh, I can't keep them straight.
Yeah.
That you play the bass on some of them too.
Yeah.
So like at some point you taught yourself bass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and bass guitar is essentially the bottom four strings of a regular guitar. So I play bass like a guitar player. You know, I'm not doing like the crazy slapping and popping like Flea, and I use a pick like a guitar player, so real bass players probably frown on what I'm doing. But you can do enough to, if you know how to play guitar, you can essentially play bass.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's not that.
Bass players would hate you saying this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving away tricks. Because another one, like I play harmonica a lot, and people think you're a genius when you're playing harmonica and guitar at the same time, but harmonicas are always in key. So you have to buy a lot of them to be in the right key, but no matter what you're blowing at what point on the harmonica, you're always going to be in key.
Do you would you ever get stage fright performing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that get better over I mean, it's been decades. Like, does it get a little easier? Or?
It does in certain circumstances. I don't get really nervous with drums because it's not so technical and you don't have to be as precise, but I do get nervous playing guitar, especially if it's solo and it's a lot of people. A lot of times on the solo gigs, people are listening, but they're not. You know, if it's at a restaurant or a bar or something, you'll definitely get people keyed in on you, but for the most part, you're not the main focus. So if you ever go and play at like a listening room where people like bought tickets and they're going to sit right there and they're going to look at you the entire time, then that gets a little more nerve-wracking.
Right.
For sure.
The laser focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like with the Trainwrecks gig recently, I was just like, let's go, let's do this. And everybody's there and we're all having a good time.
Yeah.
And when I'm playing drums, it's I don't know, drums is very natural to me, and so it's something that I don't worry about.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, but with guitar, that was more of a learning curve for me, and it's not something that I'm really good at right off the bat, so I'm always a little bit more nervous about guitar stuff.
I feel like people, even if you're not a musical person, you can hear like a mistake on the guitar, or if somebody hits the wrong note singing, a lot easier than I wouldn't be able to tell if a drummer did something weird.
No.
Unless you like threw your stick out.
There is, yeah. And I drop sticks or I break them all the time, and then it's just like, man, there's nothing going on back there right now. You know, but for the most part, I can cover up on drums. But yeah, and especially like on piano, I never play piano out. One
people just hear
half a note off, and it's just like, it's like I heard that clam, buddy. I heard it. So yeah, if I had to play a full gig on piano, I would be.
It looked like from your social media that you lately have a whole stable of places you play. So I wrote down, there's Jazz, Squirrels in Eastern Wharf, there's Perch, there's Foxy.
Yeah.
Those different places.
Yeah, and it's kind of the basic. There's a whole crew, a lot of people that you've talked to before are kind of on the same circuit.
I think Cyril especially. I think you have a lot of overlap with your places.
Yeah, and Jason has started playing like Perch in Public as well. And yeah, you know, I mean, it's 3 hours. Some people don't want to do that. I don't mind it.
Because that's a long time?
It's pretty long.
Okay.
Like, I don't play... A lot of people go and play the Warehouse on River Street, but they want you to play 4 hours.
Okay.
3 hours is about the tops for me. 4 that's stretching it.
They're like
fingers
giving
hurt.
out free beer, so maybe they can stretch it out.
That does help. That used to help back in the day. But I don't party as much as I used to, so it's not as that's not the motivating factor. But yeah, 4 hours is a long time.
Yeah, I bet. Do you kind of tailor a different like collection of songs based on which venue you're at?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of tell when you need to maybe break out a bunch of covers.
Oh, like as you're in the middle of a gig?
Yeah, you can just kind of tell, like, you can kind of just tell from looking sometimes, and certain venues lend themselves more to original songs. So if, like at Foxy, you can kind of do whatever you want. But some of the more downtown places, I try to throw in more covers just to kind of keep the crowd.
If I was going to stereotype, I would say that, the more she places would want a recognizable song and like a fun experience. And Foxy seems like it's probably artists and poets and students, and they want your artistic experience.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is Foxy, how, like, if other people listening are looking to kind of book since you're part of the coffee empire? Like,
I'm kind of in charge of the booking there.
Oh, cool.
I think there is a booking email on the website, so if people are looking for gigs, we don't do it a ton, so it's like once a week and then first Friday, so it's not like there's a ton of opportunities for gigs there, but we're always open to hear whoever, and we love having new people in. And people that maybe are new to the area or whatever, we're always up looking for new stuff.
Yeah.
So, new sounds.
I always like to ask musicians, in the balance between writing songs and performing and recording, how do you fall in those, if those are the sort of three different tenets of your enjoyment of them?
I've been doing a lot of recording lately. So my buddy Stu from the Trainwrecks, we put out a record called East Bay-Ardsley because he moved to East Bay, Navarre, Florida, outside of Pensacola. And so we just kind of tied our two geographical areas together for the band name.
Yeah.
But we put out 12-song record where he was writing guitar stuff and lyrics. He'd send them to me. I would do drums, keyboards, string parts, and then do all the production and the mixing and stuff.
Can I put in one of those songs right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and there's one of them, I think More Than a Phase was one of the ones that I sent you.
More than a phase, for heaven's sake, run out of days. Time goes by.
And so that record just came out 2 months ago.
Oh, great.
3 months ago.
Where can people listen to that?
It's on all the streamers.
Okay.
Yep. So East Bay-Ardsley, the record is called Volume 1. And then Stu's already sent me 2 more songs. And I've gotten one completely finished. And one just needs for him to do lyrics and vocals.
Are you going to go like indefinite number of volumes?
Yeah,
basically?
I think so. As long as he's up for it. He just got a new band down in Pensacola, so I think that's taken up more of his time musically, which is great because he loves to play live. So it's something that he's been wanting to do. So, but yeah, we've been putting out a lot of music and it's been great.
Yeah, and you said so. This guy Stu, he's like your longtime person that you always like to tag in. How did you guys meet originally?
He was when the Trainwreck started, and that was 2001, 2002 maybe. Kind of slow rolling into 2003, 2004. It was just the three of us. So Jason Bible, Eric Dunn, and myself. And then somehow we found Stu. He moved to the area, and he was writing, I think, music column for one of the local magazines, or maybe for the Savannah Morning News. But Jason talked to him, and then we brought him in, and he's like a dobro player. So he has a guitar that puts on his lap and plays with a slide.
Oh, what is that called?
That's a dobro.
Okay.
And it's like an open. The strings are tuned to open. So, if you just do straight across, it'll be a G chord, but he's just a monster.
Oh, interesting.
Dobro player, but he also is an amazing guitar player. And so, once we got him in the band, then things really took off because our sound just got that much bigger and that much better. And he and I have always been close. He's stuck by my side through all kinds of crazy stuff, and he's just a great guy and one of my best friends. But I always, anything that I do musically, I get him involved because he's just really tasteful. He kind of lets me do production stuff. He doesn't, like, some people will be like, I don't want it to sound like this. I want it to sound exactly like this. Dude's like, hey man, here's 3 solos. Do what you want.
Yeah.
Cut them up. Make them sound completely different. Do whatever you want. Just make it sound good, and I'm in.
And you like doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Get into it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like was the pandemic like a good era for you creatively? Like you thrived?
There were. I did write a lot of songs and just like I said, going to YouTube University and really becoming better at the craft of recording music. And that's something that I'm using here, and I'm still learning. I mean, it's amazing what these programs could do, because when we first started out, if you wanted to record something, you had to get a lot of money together. You had to go to some place with some guy, and the clock was running as soon as you got there.
Time is money.
Yeah. But I remember one place, it was like dinero es clock. It was like, and it was like a complete murdering of various languages to say that time is money. And now you can make huge sounding records in your bedroom.
Yeah, it really has revolutionized it. That's wild. It has.
So the barrier to entry is basically zero. And now there's, I don't know how many thousands of songs being uploaded every day. So it's there was a time where, like, if you wanted to record something, you had to be a good band, or you had to have a lot of money. But it kind of kept everybody from being a musician, and now everybody is, and so it's just flooded. And so how do you become big? And I'm not looking to become a big rock star or anything. I just love the craft of it. I love having a beautiful product at the end of this whatever journey I'm on with whatever song. And so but learning all that stuff from the pandemic has been a godsend for me, because it does keep me busy doing things that I really enjoy doing. And
it's kind of the equivalent in art of just the internet and being able for people to put their art up and sell it themselves and promote it and not have to go through galleries or anything like that. There was this guy when I was in high school. I came across this album, and it was this young kid, and his name was Johnny Polanski. And do you remember this? And I feel like the lore of him, like, maybe I read about it in a magazine, but the lore of him is that he had just like written and recorded all these songs, like all the instruments himself in his bedroom, and then he put out the CD. So how would you even have done that before? Was he just recording it on like a boombox?
Yeah, they had 4-track recorders, and there was a whole, like, a lot of the lo-fi bands, so like Pavement, Guided by Voices, Sebadoh, like the Dinosaur Jr. offsuit. But it was so there were 4 tracks on a cassette, like a regular cassette tape. And so if you just run them, and 2 would go one way, 2 would go the other way, and that would be your left and right for your stereo when you're playing it. But when you record on it, you could record it all in one direction, and so you would have 4 tracks to work with. But it was still, the fidelity was super low.
Yeah.
But I had a 4-track, and I did a bunch of stuff on that 4-track, and I loved it. It was very lo-fi. It was hard to get really good sounding records, but they were interesting sounding. And, the limitations became pluses that you could amplify, and so you could get a certain sound out of a 4-track.
Yeah.
And then, now everything's
and we were only expecting a certain sound anyway when you're listening back then. Like, it probably did sound like a kid who just recorded in his bedroom, but it was awesome.
But that was cool.
It was great.
Yeah.
And that was all we knew.
And I love that.
Did you know that guy, Johnny Polanski?
That sounds super familiar.
He had like this one CD. I was obsessed with it. I came across it maybe a year ago, something on like a YouTube hole, and came across it and was like, oh my God, I remember that kid. And the songs were so good.
Yeah. No, there are old records like that. You could kind of do that, but it was still a harder proposition back in the day to get your stuff recorded.
Yeah, I was into him, and then I was really into Liz Phair, and she famously, her first, I guess she just recorded it herself and then sent her on a cassette tape.
Yeah, so I think it was the Girly Sounds right before Exile. But yeah, I loved Exile, but I remember there was some little MTV show that Kid was the host, and they brought out a 4-track, and Liz was like, oh, and I use this button for speed control. You can do tempo control on it. But they were talking about this 4-track, and he was saying that he was recording stuff, and she was, I guess, in her 20s, but had kind of hit it big with Exile in Guyville.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how much she enjoyed using the 4-track.
That's how she got out there and got... Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she also, I guess she was famous, I guess she was creating her own chords or something. There was some kind of lore about it. She was inventing her chords.
There were, on a lot of those songs, you'll hear really interesting voicings, chord phrasing. So it's like there'd be like an extra note in there that most people you wouldn't usually hear. And, I love that record.
Yeah, that Exile in Guyville, I guess I don't really have
that
vocabulary
sucker
for it,
out.
but it sounded odd. It sounded like discordant, and it did sound really different.
Yeah.
The music to
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it was
She was
incredible.
great, but yeah, and I think she's back out hitting the anniversary on that
Yeah,
record
she
and doing
really
stuff.
is.
But
Pretty cool.
good stuff.
It's sad when you're thinking about these people who it's the 20 or 30 year anniversary of some
I know.
big
I
album.
start
It is
hearing-
hard to hear.
I
about
hear,
that.
yeah. Like I guess White Stripes, Get Behind Me, Satan just turned 20, and that's one of their later
Yeah, all these
records.
things having a big
It's
anniversary.
just like, oh man,
Yeah.
where did the time go? But
It's really interesting hearing about this kind of thing of the 90s recording stuff is interesting to learn about. I'm sure people like
and it was
hearing about
fun.
this.
I mean, I do remember doing a lot of stuff on my 4-track, and
Yeah.
I may even have some of those tapes around. I think I've still got my 4-track in a closet somewhere over there.
So before CDs, there was cassette tapes, and before that was 8 tracks.
Yeah.
So is an 8-track a double of a 4-track?
No, I don't understand 8-tracks because
I
you
mean-
can only fast forward, you can't rewind, and it's like you hit a program, so you kind of flips the sides, and I don't know if they have anything set up to record onto an 8-track. There may be.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's 8 tracks on there, and maybe there is something out there.
So-
I never used it. It kind of like I remember buying an old Buick, and we had an 8-track player in the car.
Yeah.
And Buick gave us one 8-track, and it had like "Hold the Line" by Toto and some Chicago song.
Oh, it just came with the car.
Yeah, and so I'd memorized how much I had to fast forward on this one side before I flipped it over to
Oh
get
my
to
gosh.
the Toto song.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but yeah, mostly by the time that I was kind of doing music stuff, it was all cassettes.
Yeah.
And then right when I was going off to college was when CDs really started taking off.
Yeah, the 8-track was a little before me too.
Yeah.
just
But I
remember
miss
hearing
making
about it.
mixtapes and mixed CDs
I know.
for people.
It was a
It's
whole
not the
art.
same. It was like a playlist now. It's just not the, there's no, it's not the
It's not
same.
quite the same,
Giving
yeah.
somebody the artifact like I really like you. I'm that guy in your in
Yeah.
your biology class. Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I need this week CD because
Yeah, you'd go off and you'd go home and listen to it.
Yeah.
It was so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you kind of wind it down? But
Sure,
what
sure.
should we keep an eye out for you in the future? Are there venues that you really want to play that you haven't, or like music festivals in town, or what's your future looking like?
I don't. I'm hopeful to maybe like it was nice playing drums again, and I hadn't played drums in years out like for a full show, and it was really great. So I'm hopeful that I can maybe get in with somebody. I think the Trainwrecks are going to play a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so that'll be some special occasions here and there. But I wouldn't mind getting into playing drums again
Oh,
more
cool.
often. I do like that. Solo gigs are kind of my bread and butter. But I'm hopeful. I had another band called Waits and Company and Clouds and Satellites, and those were kind of ongoing affairs, but people moved away, and it's
Yeah.
harder to keep it together when people get married and then they have kids or they get a new mortgage or they get a new job or their wife gets a job, and
Yeah.
so it's hard. I've had a couple of my band outlets went away right around the pandemic just from members moving.
I guess the nice thing at this age, there's not so much of that happening. Like people are a little more stable at this point.
Yeah.
At this age.
And so once you get people in town, but if they leave town, then it's hard to kind of pick up, and there's not as many people, like my age, just out there trying to be hungry and get gigs. So, I'm going to keep doing my solo gigs.
Yeah. But yeah, you'd be on the lookout for being a drummer.
Yeah, but
Cool.
Definitely, I'm hopeful that more drumming stuff is going to happen. Right now, my Mike Kilo stuff is all just on Bandcamp, but I'm looking to get one more EP together and then just kind of put out the whole thing as one record and really hit all the streaming services.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll happen in the next few months. So yeah, just I'm
We'll
gonna
keep
keep
an eye
on
out for that.
recording. Yeah.
Yeah. on
Yeah,
Instagram.
absolutely. I'm really proud of the Mike Kilo stuff. Even if that doesn't happen on that timeline, I would highly suggest people go look up the Bandcamp page because I'm really proud of that
Absolutely.
stuff.
I will link to that in your
Yeah.
Instagram in the
Cool,
show
cool.
notes. So
Excellent.
thank you so much. This
No
was really a
worries.
pleasure.
No, I appreciate
talking about
it.
this stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening. This has been Markus Kuhlmann, and this is Tamara Garvey with Arts on the Air. Thank you.